With the budget, which was presented by President Bola Tinubu, it's the key highlights in its defense and security, which is allocated 4.91 trillion naira, infrastructure allocated 4.06 trillion naira, health allocated 2.48 trillion naira, and education was allocated 3.52 trillion naira. The president also highlighted key economic achievements of his administration over the last 18 months.
For infrastructure development, we launched the Renew Hope Infrastructure Development Fund. It was with the conviction that infrastructure remains the backbone of every thriving economy. Under this program, we are accelerating investment in energy, transport, and public works. By leveraging private capital, we hope to complete key projects and give growth and create more jobs. We have already embarked on key legacy projects. Lagos-Calabar-Kusa Highway, Sokoto and Badagry Highway. They will have a huge impact on the lives of our people and accelerate economic growth. That is the rationale behind that. Our administration has so far disbursed 34 billion naira to over 300,000 students through the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NEL Fund. In the 2025 budget, we have made provision for 825.90 billion naira for infrastructure development in the education sector. This includes those for the universal basic education UBEC and the 9 new higher educational institutions.
And primary health care was also given unprecedented priority.
We are convinced that universal health coverage initiatives will strengthen primary health care system across Nigeria. In this way, we have allocated 402 billion naira for infrastructure investment in the health sector of year 2025 budget. And another 282.65 billion naira for the basic health care fund. Our hospitals will be refertilized with medication and better resources, ensuring quality care for all Nigerians. This is consistent with the federal government's planned procurement of essential drugs for distribution to public healthcare centers and facilities, nationwide improvement in healthcare across and reducing medical imports dependency.
As he rounded up his speech, President Tinubu promised to walk the talk while seeking the support of Nigerians to execute policies and programs.
The time for lamentation is over. The time to act is now. It's a time to support and promote greater investment in private sector. A time for our civil servants to faithfully execute our policies and programs. It is a time for every Nigerian to look hopefully towards a brighter future, because a new day has dawned for us as a nation. As your president, I remain committed and resolute to continue to lead the charge.
Well, let's get into this. Let's bring in the Vice President, Nigeria Irish Business Association, Aliyu Audu. He joins me from Abuja studio for more on the highlights of the 2025 budget. Good to have you join us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good afternoon.
So this is the president's second full budget since he assumed office in 2023. But let's begin with the one of 2024 before we delve into the figures and some of the highlights of this particular budget being presented. What would you make of the 2024 budget, especially in terms of its performance?
Well, the 2024 budget, I think it was the first tenure of the president, and the budget was about 27 trillion, and I believe it didn't really capture much. It was not ambitious, or it's not ambitious like the one of 2025. So I believe 2024 has passed, and the key variables were not captured. And I believe 2025 is a more ambitious budget that takes into consideration infrastructure, healthcare, and some other areas.
And the president has called this budget a budget of restoration and securing peace, rebuilding prosperity. And as you look at the figures allocated to certain sectors, especially defense, security, education, health, and infrastructure, do you actually see this budget, securing peace and rebuilding prosperity?
Well, yeah, we're spending quite a lot on defense. We're spending over 4 trillion on defense. Actually, defense carries the highest allocation. And now, obviously, that happens to countries that are in state of war. We are not exactly at war. I know we have the Boko Haram insecurities and all that. Whatever it is, that issue should be solved. And if we have to allocate a huge amount to defense, then let it be so, because without you having peace, farmers can't go out to produce. People can go about their normal businesses. Investment is discouraged. Foreign direct, nobody wants to come and invest here if there's no security. So if we're spending over 4 trillion on defense, then that's okay, if that's going to bring peace. I'm not a defense expert, but if the government believes that will bring peace, then that's fine. But we have to also look at other critical areas like agriculture, because we can't be defending ourselves so much that we forget to eat. Agriculture is very important, and other areas too. The allocation to health and infrastructure and education is good, but we have to look at agriculture, which is very important.
Is there a sense that, because some people will say one of the key challenges we have with agriculture is security, because farmers find it very difficult to go to the farm, that perhaps if security is taken care of, agriculture will naturally take on a life of its own?
I won't say agriculture will naturally take a life of its own, because it's whatever you put into agriculture that you bring out. We're spending over 4 trillion in defense. Agriculture is where we should be focusing, because if we're moving from oil to other sectors of the economy, like agriculture, solid minerals, and what have you, then we should invest a lot in agriculture. So it's garbage in, garbage out. Agriculture can't just start producing. We can't just start producing food and exporting food, without us really investing in agriculture. If you look at our food import bill is over $10 billion we're spending on agriculture currently. We import sugar, we import milk, we import meat, we import a lot of stuff. And if you're importing those things into the country, that is going to affect our exchange rate. That is going to make the naira weak. So agriculture is the base of the economy. You need to invest in agriculture, and when you invest in agriculture, then it can lead to growth in other sectors of the area. We can be able to feed ourselves. If we can't feed ourselves, and we're even, Burkina Faso, for example, grows sugar. We are still importing sugar. That is not good. That's not going to help us. That's not going to help our exchange rate. And we keep complaining about the dollar is going up, the dollar is going up. This is the problem. We are not investing enough in agriculture. Yes, we have invested more than 2024, allocated more into agriculture, but we need to do more. We need to focus on agriculture. Defense is good,
Mr. Audu,
you can't keep defending yourself and you forget to eat.
Just a minute, Mr. Audu. What sort of investment would you have liked to see in agriculture in terms of monetary allocation?
I would like to see foreign direct investment in agriculture. I would like to see partnerships. I would like to see over 5 to 10 billion being invested in agriculture. I would like us to focus on agriculture because currently, right now, we are still dependent on oil. The majority of our revenue is coming from oil. That means we are not investing in other areas. So it is garbage in, garbage out. If you invest 1 trillion in agriculture, you are going to expect maybe 1.5 trillion back. If you invest 5 trillion in agriculture, then you expect more. We have a huge land, in Nigeria, agrarian land. That is by African Development Bank. We can farm a lot of things. We have different states that specialize in different agricultural products. We have the groundnut pyramids. In the last couple of years that we are focused on producing rice, you can see we no more import rice like we used to do. We used to be the second largest rice importer. We're second to the European Union. But now, since we have started investing in rice production, we are no more importing rice. Nigerian rice is as good as foreign rice now. So that's what we need to do. This is the area we need to focus on. Agriculture, we have a beautiful, good land for farming, and we need to invest a lot in agriculture. Mechanized farming. A lot of farmers are looking for partnerships. They're looking for capital and support, to go into mechanized farming. That's what we don't have, and that's what we need to invest in. So I believe agriculture, in a way, has been left out.
Because it has a lot of sides, to look at. There is the issue of the farmers themselves, security. There is the issue of the affordability. There's the issue of availability when it comes to farming products as well. But I want us to move to other issues because you had mentioned revenue. And then in that presentation, the president had talked about expecting over 30 trillion naira in terms of revenue. That's a whole lot. In terms of where we're at today, because that majorly will come from oil. And then when you also maybe tax as well, do we have enough to lead us to that figure at the end of 2025?
Well, I believe that majority of the revenue is coming from oil, and about 19 trillion is coming from oil. Then we have other areas like taxes, 5.2 trillion, and other areas. So what I'm saying is that yes, we could get to that figures by adding other income streams that the government is expecting. But at this stage, we should not still be getting majority of our revenue from oil. We're still oil dependent. That is not good. And that is why we're facing crisis. When there's a security situation that affects oil, we can't eat. So we should be moving from oil into other areas. We have solid minerals. We have agriculture. We even have tourism, manufacturing, and what have you. So we should invest in all these other areas in order for us to leave oil. A lot of countries are leaving oil. Even Saudi Arabia is leaving oil. Many other countries, Dubai has left oil and has moved into tourism. So what are we saying? Do we want to move arithmetically, or do we want a geometrical growth? And I think we want double digits growth. That is why I'm saying that we have to look for other income streams. Yes, the president is trying by increasing the revenue. The revenue we had in 2024 is 2025 is much bigger than 2024, but we have to invest in other areas. We have to get revenues from other areas in order for us to get to the promised land. Don't forget, we have a huge unemployment figure. We have a huge inflation figure. We are one of the poverty capitals of the world. So we need revenue in order to encourage growth. The president is ambitious and wants a growth of 6.4%. We have to tap into other areas. We have one of the our tax system is one of the weakest in the world. We don't tax the rich, we don't tax, there are a lot of tax systems that we avoid. We don't have inheritance tax, we don't have a lot of taxes that we are not implementing. So we need to look into the various ways to generate income rather than just relying on oil. Thank you.
And one of the things the president has also talked about is reducing the country's dependence on external debt. And then this budget had allocated 15 trillion naira to debt servicing. I wonder, because it will almost look like the president is trying to perform an economic balancing act on one end to say, let's reduce our dependence on external debt by raising revenues in the country. But you've also allocated 15 trillion naira to debt servicing. Let's assume that all of that will be done, from the 34 trillion naira allocated, if that is, realized in revenue generation. Just balance that for us. If where we are now, in the next 2-3 years, whether we can reduce our dependence on external debt if we're still servicing debt.
Over the last 5 years, we have been increasing our external borrowing, and that is not good, because basically what it means is that we're borrowing to eat, because majority of the money, of the revenue we make, we are using it to pay back the debts. So we have nothing left for infrastructure, we have nothing left for other area, for developing other areas. So it's important that we reduce our dependency on borrowing and look for ways to other income streams in order for us to be able to achieve our economic growth figures. We can't keep borrowing. Now, if you look at it, what are we borrowing for? Are these things we've been borrowing for, are they generating revenue? Are we, we've been borrowing. Are we borrowing to establish a proper railway? Is the railway system working, and is it generating revenue? Are we borrowing to build income-generating infrastructures that by now we should say they are generating revenue? Is that the case? If that's not the case, then I think it's very important that we reduce our borrowing, because at some point, if we're paying, that's over 1/3 of our budget we're going to use, of our revenue, almost 40% of our revenue we're going to use to service debts. That's not good. That means what do we have left? We have very little left to pay salaries and for capital expenditure. So we need to reduce borrowing.
And Mr. Odu, that brings me back to the question I was asking you, because the revenue, projected revenue is 34 trillion naira, which means that, because if you have a budget of 47 trillion naira, you already have a deficit of at most 13 trillion naira. And now there is also 15 trillion naira for debt servicing. Where do you now find the money to make up for all of these shortfalls?
More borrowing. That is the problem. We are borrowing too much. And we should be looking for other income streams, like we have solid minerals. We should look into developing our solid minerals framework and our and various framework. We need to look into developing that. For example, now, there's a lot of leakages in the economy. You cannot, people just come and mine and take out a lot of things without proper allocation. Just like the way we treat oil, we should treat other areas of the economy like that. We should treat solid minerals, we should treat coal, and many income-generating areas like that. The National Assembly should come up with laws that protect, that streamlines any form of minerals as a national good, rather than private individuals going to mine these minerals, and at the end of the day, it goes into private pockets. So we have to look for ways that we can streamline any form of anything that we harness from Nigeria as a government property. We should not let private individuals come into, to mine or take anything as they want. That is going to create leakages. For example, now in Zamfara, there's gold. People come to mine this gold and take it out of the country. And this causes a lot of, conflicts in the Sahara region. Now, this should not be so. We should streamline all incomes to the government, and it should be government that will that would allocate for this revenue. So I think that is one of the problems we are facing. We have a lot of leakages, and these leakages needs to be coped. Everything needs to be directed towards the national purse. Thank you very much.
So the particular, one of the highlights of this presentation for a lot of people, which has gotten a lot of economists and business people like yourself talking, is the fact that the president had mentioned that at the end of 2025, our inflation rate, which is now over 34%, would have dropped to 15%. As you look at that, it sounds good to the ears, but how realistic is that?
Well, I mean, the president has not really, or should I say, Minister of Finance has not really come out to tell us how they are going to drop inflation from 34% to 15%. How realistic is that? What are they going to do? There's no explanation to that. So I myself, I don't see that possible because, what is inflation? Inflation was brought about by removal of subsidy. And this has led to increment in the price of petrol. And that has translated into the price increment in goods and services. So if you cannot reverse the price of petrol, and I don't see you being able to revise the price of major commodities. And that is the principal thing that is causing inflation today. So I think that's very ambitious of the president to say that we're going to move from 34% to 15%. That's very ambitious in terms of inflation. It's going to be very, very difficult without reducing the price of major commodities, especially petrol. The other day, Dangote reduced the price of, said he's going to be selling petrol at about 900 naira. That is still not going to take us back to where we are coming from. Remember, before that, I think petrol was about 591 or 600 naira per liter. So, I don't see that happening. So inflation for me will still be at a higher rate because I've not seen any ambitious policy that is going to reduce inflation in the medium term or in the long term. All I see is more expenses, and more expenses, more investment into infrastructure, more investment into defense and healthcare and all, is only going to increase inflation. I don't see it, reducing in the near future.
For you, what would be the most realistic projection for the inflation rate at the end of 2025? Can the inflation rate be reduced? You see, inflation is very complicated. You can't just wish inflation to go down and inflation will go down. Inflation is driven by the price of major goods and services.
Now, I see if the CBN manages the inflation, I see the inflation reducing, but not by, maybe by 2 or 3 points. But I don't see it going down drastically because the price of major commodities are going to still remain the same. There's no aggressive policy that is going to reduce the price of petrol. There's no aggressive policy that is going to reduce the price of dollar, for example, because we are dollar independent. We're a consuming country. We're not producing. If you want to buy sugar, you have to go to, you have to import it. If you want to buy fish, if you want to buy milk, you have to import it. We have a food import bill between $5 to $10 billion. So that is where the inflation is. Now, if you want to reduce inflation, you have to start production. You have to produce the major things we consume. And that's why it took us back to agriculture. We have to start producing sugar. We have to start producing milk. We have to start producing meat. We have to start producing whatever we consume. We have to be, we are import dependent. That is not good. And we have to move from that position to start exporting food. That is the only way inflation is going to come down. If you are importing sugar, you have no control of the inflation, because if the value of inflation in the country you are importing it from goes up, you still have to buy. So you have no control of what you buy. That's what it means, because you are not a producer. So in simple terms, it's going to be very difficult for us to move inflation from 34% to, half that amount, 15 or, I believe it could reduce to 30%, but not to 15%, because there is no aggressive policy that shows that we are going to start producing what we consume, we're going to start producing what we eat. That is the problem. So I don't see inflation going down. Thank you.
So the president has also pegged the exchange rate at 1,500 naira to the dollar, compared to the 2024 budget, where it was, very optimistic at saying 750 naira to the dollar, and then it did rise to over 1,000 naira. When you look at the 1,500 naira, I would tread in on realistic grounds to say, okay, it is now 1,500 naira and nothing more.
Well, the exchange rate, as you know, has had a life of its own. It keeps going up and up. And now, it's now at 1,700. Well, the president has every right to fix the official rate. But what is the market rate, which is where most of us get our dollars from? Or most Nigerians, sorry, not me, most Nigerians get their dollars from. What is the market rate? What determines the market rate? Demand and supply. And as I've said before, we are still a consuming country. We're still, if we need to buy anything, we're demanding, we go for dollars. A lot of things, we're not a manufacturing country. We don't produce the things we consume here. So how are we going to reduce the price of dollar? It's almost impossible, because it has had a very progressive increase for the last 1 year or say 2 years. And as I've said before, if you want to reduce the increment in the price of dollars, you have to stop all the things you do to demand dollars, which is consumption. You buy, we are not having policies of saying, okay, every Nigerian now has to, buy, let's say all government officials have to use Innocent Motors, so that we can stop the importation of cars, of foreign cars. That is where our dollars are going. So how are you going to mitigate that when majority of Nigeria, even the House of Assembly members, are importing Toyota? When you're doing that, it means that you're taking our jobs from Nigeria and sending it to Japan. And then you're helping the dollar, because you need to change Naira, you need to use dollars to buy. They're not going to accept Naira. So that is our problem. We are still import dependent. And if we're import dependent, which is progressing, there's no sign of saying, okay, well, majority of Nigerians, like before in the 80s, all government official car was Peugeot. We had a Peugeot manufacturing plant in Kaduna. Now, that's not the case. We don't have any government policies that say all government officials should.
I have to quickly step in because I want to ask you,
made in Nigerian goods.
All right, thank you. I want to ask you, the final question because of time. we've been talking about, the government side of this. This is really about Nigerians and what this budget means for them. When you add all of this, the budget, the highlights of the budget, and they add it to the oil, now we're producing oil in the country, at least that's good news for Nigerians, but you add that to the inflation rate, the food inflation rate, the unemployment figures. What is the outlook, economic outlook for the average Nigerian in 2025?
Well, I don't think the average Nigerian is happy already because, as you can see, the price of goods has gone up. So the average Nigerian wants the price to go down. So, so majority of Nigerians are not happy because prices are going up. But what the president can do is stability, create stability, no more increment in prices, because I believe we have reached a stage whereby we have a stable oil price. I don't see the price of petrol going up any longer. So the price of goods and services shouldn't go up. So I believe we can have stable prices from now on till in 2025 without any shocks to the economy, like, okay, the price of petrol has gone up to 1,500. I don't expect that in 2025. So I believe Nigerians could look forward to a stable economy from where we are right now. But in terms of reducing prices, I don't see that. Why don't I say that? I don't see any policy that is going to reduce the cost of petrol. I don't see any policy that is going to reduce increase agricultural production. Well, the president is ambitious, but I still think we can do more in order to get to the promised land or to get to the position that most Nigerians want. We can do more, even though the president has done better than last year, because we have more investment in healthcare, we have more investment in education, even in agriculture, but that is not the growth we should be looking at. We should be looking at growing Nigeria to a point whereby everybody can eat. We have very low unemployment rate, we have very low things we import. We want to be a producing economy, and that is where we need to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time and your analysis. Vice President, Nigeria Irish Business Association, Aliyu Audu. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.